The catecholamine synthesis pathway is necessary for the synthesis of dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. These compounds are important neurotransmitters in the brain and can also act as hormones in the blood. In this scene, I'm going to give you an easy way to remember the enzymes and intermediates in both the catecholamine synthesis and breakdown pathways. So put on your swimsuits because we're off to the water park this time. Yep, a water park. The perfect place to get some catecholamines flowing. Where else are you going to get the pleasures of dopamine and the thrills of epinephrine? Get yourself ready for the ultimate thrill, because we're going into that water slide. Let's start by just looking at our water slide. See that funnel? Every water slide starts with a funnel, leading riders into the slide. The word funnel also helps me remember phenylalanine. Get it? Funnel for phenylalanine, or phenylalanine. Phenylalanine is an amino acid, and it's also the starting molecule of catecholamine synthesis. That's why this funnel is the start of our adventure today. Next, take a look inside that water slide. Yep, it's a tire. This is one of those tube slides where people ride on tires. Looks like someone got separated from their tire. For some reason, this tire makes me think of tyrosine, the next intermediate in this pathway. Tire for tyrosine. Get it? Tyrosine is made from phenylalanine by a hydroxylase enzyme, phenylalanine hydroxylase. To remember hydroxylase, just look at this water splashing inside the slide. Water is our recurring symbol for hydroxylation. This water hydroxylates anything that enters our funnel, which helps me remember the enzyme, phenylalanine hydroxylase. But that's not the only thing between our funnel and our tire. Take a look at this brush door at the entrance of the slide. It really makes for an extra sensory experience. Kinda makes this slide look like a car wash though. This brush reminds me of the letters BH, while the door is our recurring symbol for the number 4. Putting this together, this brush door symbolizes the compound BH4. Get it? Brush door for BH4. BH4, or tetrahydrobiopterin, is a cofactor required for the hydroxylation of phenylalanine. And as we've already discussed, this reaction produces tyrosine. You can just remember this cofactor as our brush door at the start of our slide after our funnel. Now, every water park has a urine problem, and it looks like this one's no exception. See how someone's already peed inside the slide? Ugh, kids, they just ruined everything. This urine between the funnel and tire helps me remember the disease phenylketonuria, since urine sounds a lot like urea. Phenylketonuria, also known as PKU, is caused by the inability to metabolize phenylalanine into tyrosine, and it can be caused by two things: either a decrease in phenylalanine hydroxylase or a deficiency in the BH4 cofactor. This makes a lot of sense, right? Without the hydroxylase enzyme or its necessary cofactor, we can't get from phenylalanine to tyrosine. Check out our dedicated scene on phenylketonuria to learn more about that disease. For now, just remember this urine between the funnel and tire, and you'll know where phenylketonuria fits inside this pathway. Alrighty, let's find out who left our tire behind. Ah, there he is. Yippee! It's a doughboy? Wait a minute, doughboy. Doesn't doughboy sound a lot like dopa? That's right, this doughboy is our symbol for the next intermediate after tyrosine, dopa. The dopa doughboy plays an important role as a catecholamine precursor molecule. In fact, we even use L-dopa as a drug. Ever hear of levodopa? L-dopa is used to treat Parkinson's disease, but it really acts like a prodrug. You see, the downstream catecholamines made from dopa are the actual active molecules. Going back to the story, even our doughboy enjoys a day off at the water park. Next, shift your gaze towards all this water coming out of the slide. I'm sure you've already guessed what this means. Yes, you are correct. This water splashing out towards our dopa doughboy represents a hydroxylase enzyme. Because water is our recurring symbol for hydroxylases, remember? Specifically, the enzyme that catalyzes the conversion of tyrosine to dopa is tyrosine hydroxylase. We're at a water park, after all, so all these hydroxylase enzymes should be pretty easy to remember. But did you notice the second brush door at the exit of this slide? No? How could you? Of course the slide needs one at the end as well. I wonder if you can guess what this brush door means. Yep, this brush door symbolizes yet another BH4 cofactor. Good job. Brush door for BH4, remember? This brush door is located between our tire and our doughboy to help you remember that the reaction of tyrosine to dopa also requires the cofactor, BH4. Hey, this thrill ride isn't over yet. Did you see the rope? Looks like our doughboy has to grab onto this rope next. By the way, rope helps me remember dopamine. The dopamine rope, right? This rope in front of our doughboy helps me remember that dopa becomes dopamine in the next step of this pathway. But some of you are asking, what enzyme catalyzes the conversion of dopa to dopamine? Hold on, I was just getting to that. Look at this soggy, flattened cardboard box under the doughboy. A broken cardboard box is our recurring symbol for decarboxylase, or decardboard-boxylase enzymes. The conversion of dopa into dopamine is catalyzed by a decarboxylase enzyme, dopa decarboxylase. Note that this is not a hydroxylase enzyme. We'll discuss why this decarboxylase enzyme is so important in just a little bit. But before that, let's talk about this pyramid of sticks here. Looks like some kids have been building structures on top of our broken cardboard box. For some reason, this stick pyramid reminds me of vitamin B6, also known as pyridoxine. Because sticks sounds a lot like the number 6, and pyramid sounds like pyridoxine, right? Vitamin B6 is required as a cofactor to turn dopa into dopamine. That's why this stick pyramid is between our doughboy and the rope. You see, to get to the rope, our doughboy has to fly high, above this stick pyramid on a broken cardboard box. But every play structure needs a secret entrance. See the carpet covering the entry? Makes the inside of our stick pyramid feel extra secret. This carpet kinda reminds me of the drug carbidopa. Get it? Carpet for carbidopa. Just like how this carpet blocks entry, carbidopa blocks the action of dopa decarboxylase, preventing the conversion of dopa into dopamine. This is high yield because this drug is commonly administered with levodopa to treat Parkinson's disease. Let me explain what's actually going on here. First, recall how the treatment of Parkinson's disease aims to increase dopamine levels inside the brain. Since dopamine cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, we don't administer it directly. Instead, we give dopa as levodopa. Levodopa, or L-dopa, can cross the blood-brain barrier, and once inside the brain, dopa is then converted into dopamine by dopa decarboxylase. Therefore, we get increased dopamine inside the brain. However, dopa decarboxylase also works peripherally to convert dopa into dopamine in the bloodstream. This is problematic because peripheral dopamine has vasodilatory effects and can also increase heart rate. So, to avoid the off-target effects caused by peripheral conversion of dopa, carbidopa is given with levodopa. Carbidopa blocks dopa decarboxylase peripherally, since the drug can't cross the blood-brain barrier. This makes sure that dopamine is only produced inside the brain. This is also the reason why the enzyme dopa decarboxylase is so important. Just remember our carpet here, and you'll have the drug carbidopa down. After grabbing the rope, the next destination is a dive into this pool. Just look at that splash, getting all over this narwhal statue. Wait, narwhal? I thought a narwhal was our symbol for norepinephrine. That's right. The next step of this pathway after dopamine is norepinephrine, symbolized by the narwhal here. Don't ask me why we chose narwhal. But it's pretty memorable, right? Norepinephrine, also called noradrenaline, is important in the fight or flight response. It works to essentially get our brains and bodies ready for a fight. The splashing of water on this narwhal should help you remember that a hydroxylase enzyme produces norepinephrine. This hydroxylase enzyme is dopamine beta hydroxylase, and it works to convert dopamine into norepinephrine. If you've watched our scene on vitamin C, you would remember this narwhal from our take on the old man and the vitamin C. But I want you to take a closer look at this pool. This pool is the largest body of water here, kind of like a sea. That's right, this pool is here to make you think of vitamin C. Vitamin C is needed as a cofactor in the conversion of dopamine to norepinephrine. Just remember that we're swinging into a pool, and you'll have this cofactor mastered. Finally, let's take a look at the other side of our narwhal. The owners of this water park clearly have some weird ideas, because they put a statue of a samurai here, facing off against a narwhal. But what I want you to notice is the sword our samurai is holding. It's a fencing blade, better known as a épée. This épée is our symbol for epinephrine, the next step in the pathway after norepinephrine. Since épée sounds like and spells like epi, right? Epinephrine is the final step of this pathway, and together with norepinephrine, it plays a major role in our body's fight or flight response. Just remember our épée here, finishing this thrilling ride, and you'll have epinephrine under wraps. We'll get back to the samurai in a minute, but let's first talk about this piano mat between our narwhal and our épée. Yep, a piano mat is just what you want after getting out of the pool, right? Piano mat, for some odd reason, reminds me of the enzyme PNMT. Get it? Piano mat for PNMT. PNMT, short for phenylethylamine N-methyltransferase, is the enzyme responsible for the conversion of norepinephrine to epinephrine. Coincidentally, this piano mat is located right between our norepinephrine narwhal and our epinephrine épée, which helps me remember this reaction. Man, this water park just gets better and better. Now, back to our samurai. Some of you have already guessed that this samurai plays a role in the conversion of norepinephrine to epinephrine, and you'd be correct. This samurai should remind you of SAM, an important cofactor for PNMT. Samurai for Sam, get it? Functionally, SAM donates a methyl group to norepinephrine to turn it into epinephrine. This makes sense since the MT in PNMT stands for methyltransferase. As in, we're going to transfer a methyl group from SAM to norepinephrine. Not super important, but this just helped the names click for me. Finally, notice how some kids have vandalized this samurai with a corset. Now it looks extra threatening. This corset is here to help you remember cortisol. Corset for cortisol, get it? Cortisol increases the expression of PNMT in the adrenal medulla, which increases epinephrine production. It's unlikely that you'll need to do anything else but peg where cortisol acts in this pathway. So just remember how some kids have vandalized this samurai with a corset, and you'll remember that cortisol acts between norepinephrine and epinephrine. And there we have it, the complete catecholamine synthesis pathway. We're going to spend the next few minutes covering catecholamine breakdown, which is also high yield. But if you're just looking for the synthesis pathway, go ahead and skip forward to the recap. Alrighty, you've experienced the ultimate water slide, and a face-off between a narwhal and an épée-wielding samurai. But how do we kick back and relax after all these thrilling adventures? Well, with a bit of ice cream, of course. Check out this ice cream stand, serving Comet's famous homemade ice cream. That's quite the Fury logo, by the way. But Comet seems misspelled here. The stand now reads COMT. This conveniently reminds me of COMT, the enzyme responsible for the breakdown of norepinephrine and epinephrine. COMT is actually short for catechol-O-methyltransferase. But what exactly does this enzyme turn norepinephrine and epinephrine into? To answer this question, take a look at the Vanilla Man working inside the stand. Specifically, I want you to notice his mittens. You know how ice cream guys always wear mittens to handle the cold? This guy's mittens should remind you of metanephrines. Get it? Mittens for metanephrines or metanephrines. COMT produces metanephrines from catecholamine breakdown. Specifically, norepinephrine is degraded into normetanephrine, while epinephrine is broken down into metanephrine. Just remember our mittens serving COMT ice cream, and you'll have metanephrines under wraps. Next, let's swivel back to our worker, the Vanilla Man. No wonder COMT was misspelled. That's just what I'd expect from some teen forced to wear an ice cream costume all day. Vanilla Man should help you remember vanillomandelic acid. Get it? Vanilla Man for vanillomandelic acid. Vanillomandelic acid, or VMA, is the final degradation product of norepinephrine and epinephrine. Metanephrines, which we just talked about, are further degraded to produce vanillomandelic acid. A side note is that this is catalyzed by the MAO or monoamine oxidase enzymes. More importantly, both metanephrines and vanillomandelic acid are found in urine. This is a high yield fact because elevated metanephrines and vanillomandelic acid levels can be seen in patients with catecholamine producing tumors. I'm talking about neuroblastomas and pheochromocytomas. In these diseases, measuring blood epinephrine and norepinephrine is usually not useful, since these compounds have a super short lifespan of just a few minutes. This means that increases in norepinephrine and epinephrine levels are short-lived and episodic. So, unless you get super lucky by taking a blood draw right during a spike, these measurements of epinephrine and norepinephrine will likely be normal. Instead, a diagnosis of neuroblastoma or pheochromocytoma should be confirmed by finding elevated metanephrines or VMA levels, since these compounds are less affected by short half-lives. Just remember our Vanilla Man with his mittens, and you'll remember that metanephrines are broken down into vanillomandelic acid. Lastly, we'll get a sneak peek at how this ice cream is actually made. See the ropes on the left? These ropes are holding up a churning bucket of homemade vanilla. This picture helps me remember the breakdown product of dopamine, represented by rope. Remember? Homemade vanilla should help you remember homovanillic acid, the breakdown product of dopamine. This is actually a two-step pathway, and just like our other catecholamines, this pathway involves both the COMT and MAO enzymes. However, what's more important is that homovanillic acid, or HVA levels, can be measured inside the urine, and these levels may also be elevated in patients with catecholamine-producing tumors. Just remember our ropes holding up our homemade vanilla, and you'll be ready for any questions on dopamine breakdown. Alrighty, I've had enough of a thrill for a lifetime. Let's recap. Catecholamine synthesis begins with phenylalanine, which is converted into tyrosine. This reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme phenylalanine hydroxylase and requires the cofactor BH4. Notably, this reaction is impaired in patients with phenylketonuria. Next, tyrosine is converted into DOPA by the enzyme tyrosine hydroxylase. Tyrosine hydroxylase also requires a BH4 cofactor. Afterwards, DOPA is converted into dopamine by the enzyme DOPA decarboxylase. This reaction requires vitamin B6 as a cofactor and can be blocked by the drug carbidopa. Subsequently, dopamine is converted into norepinephrine. This reaction is catalyzed by dopamine beta hydroxylase and requires vitamin C to be present as a cofactor. Finally, norepinephrine is methylated by PNMT, becoming epinephrine. This reaction requires SAM to be present as a cofactor and can be stimulated by cortisol. Catecholamine breakdown involves a different set of enzymes and products. Dopamine is degraded into homovanillic acid, while norepinephrine and epinephrine are first converted into metanephrines by the enzyme COMT. These metanephrines are then further degraded into vanillomandelic acid. And now we're actually done with catecholamine synthesis and breakdown. Whew, that was a long one. I'm actually ready for a little bit of rest and digest action. Until next time.